All this has happened before, and it will all happen again.
This isn't the circle of life, Disney. You're 41 years too early.
And Peter Pan chose this particular house because there were people here who believed in him.
One thing that's always struck me is how it doesn't tell us who and what Peter Pan and Neverland are. No, it lets us figure it out through their games instead. Fair play.
Mrs. Darling believed that Peter Pan was the spirit of youth.
In these early scenes, the mother doesn't get much focus, and I think that's intentional. The children believe Peter Pan is real, while Mr. Darling dismisses the whole matter. But Mrs. Darling is the balance between those two viewpoints, and the one we're meant to take away with us. It's true some of the depth is lost in the Disney version, but not all. I love how the misordered letters sound like back, given Nana's going back to fix them. Maybe it's just me, but I dig it anyway. Compared to what hits Tom off of a shelf, George got off pretty lightly. This scene is quite pivotal. Wendy's arc throughout results in her learning her father isn't a tyrant. We get to know that ahead of time by seeing that, though he is practical and dismissive of imagination, he is a good man. The nursery window is open here. It was closed earlier. Wendy's pillow goes from striped to white and back again. One of my favourite in-jokes is how Tinker Bell looks like a ball of light at first. In the play, Tinker Bell is just a ball of light via a practical effect. You can tell that whatever changes he made, and there aren't as many as you think, Walt respected the original. Oh Disney, you sly dogs. Yeah, Tinkerbell really didn't think that through. Wendy's cover switched from tucked in to not tucked in too many times. I'll just group the lot as one.
Girls talk too much.
Yes.
So yeah, you could say social grace isn't one of Peter's strong points.
Of course. That's why I like him.
Peter is another case of a protagonist that's a product of his time in design and voice. Not a big problem, but the rest of us are timeless, so yeah. Tinkerbell is one of the film's triumphs of character animation, between her pantomime and facial expressions, communicating a wide spectrum of emotions. She has more depth than Peter gets all film. This is what justifies hand-drawn animation, folks. Despite John's glasses being on the stand to his left earlier, he's putting them on as though he reached to his right for them. The details around the window are often inconsistent. It's not worth naming them all, but a cushion appears that wasn't there before, and that seat changes colour.
Don't you know?
Oh, sure. It's just that I never thought about it before.
One detail from the original play is that Peter forgets things throughout the years, so that's why he doesn't know. This makes it seem like he just couldn't recollect it. That would have been a cool detail to keep.
I'll think of a Mermaid Lagoon. Underneath a magic room.
If you haven't noticed, Wendy shares the same child actress as Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Once you've noticed, it's kind of hard to not, unlike most old Disney actors that are reused.
Think of the happiest things. It's the same as having wings.
The musical build-up to arguably the film's strongest number is just lovely in that classic Disney way. Apparently early 20th century Big Ben chimes the hour on the quarter hour, folks.
When there's a smile in your heart, there's no better time to start.
You Can Fly represents the film best in that, like the film itself, it sidesteps the thematic depth in favour of child-friendly fantasy. That actually makes me like it even more. The backgrounds aren't as detailed as the ones in other Disney films of the time, but they don't need to be. It's a boy's imaginary adventure, so these lovely illustrations are all we need. The definitive Smee, folks. He's such a bouncy, roly-poly figure, animated with such goofiness in the most respectful manner, and that's before we get to his vocal delivery. You could argue that Hook isn't as interesting as in the play, and that's a fair point, but who cares when the result is a melodramatic foil this hilarious? It's like a Bugs Bunny antagonist sneaked his way into the film. If anything, Smee and Hook are stronger together than apart. They're like Disney's version of Laurel and Hardy. You've got to love classic methods of syncing music to the action, folks. The only thing against the crocodile is a missing detail. Much like how Hook can be a reimagining of Mr. Darling, TikTok can be a reimagining of Nana, but I never realised that until doing my research. It would definitely add to the humour if it was clear beyond the occasional dog-like movement. It fits in with the children imagining the roles, if you think about it. Where did that chair come from? It wasn't there before. After being firmly whistle-less for the past 5 minutes and change, Smee is a whistle. 5 minutes, I repeat. Slightly is leaning against Cubby here, but he isn't when the camera's on Cubby. I can defend the changes to Hook. The Lost Boys, not so much. We get little about them beyond their title, and that they're child delinquents eager to please Peter. Funny, but unnecessarily simplified.
I hereby banish you forever.
Please, not forever.
Well, for a week then.
She definitely didn't hear him.
Go out and capture a few Indians. John, you be the leader.
Why does he make John the leader? The Lost Boys have actually captured Indians for Peter before. Don't see the logic.
Tiddum, tiddly, a tiddly-diddly, oh, a tiddly-dum, a tiddly-do-tiddy.
Ha! Brilliant. Is it just me, or does that tree look rather poorly composited? Those footprints weren't there in the previous shot. It wasn't out far enough to justify missing them. What happened with the cell colour? That's a bit too off from pink to be mere lighting, I think.
Despite John being grabbed here, he hasn't moved when they pounce. He may be only visible for 6 frames, but they still had to have drawn this goof. Seriously, animators. All you can say here is that playful racism was part of the cultural fabric for Caucasian boys through to the 60s, in both America and England. Not a defence, just a fact. Buckle up folks, this sequence has a fair few goofs. Firstly, this mermaid's hair changes from black to blonde to orange. You can tell by the same leaf tie in her hair and the clamshells. Here we have the same mermaids waving twice, just in different positions. Swell job, filmmakers. Wendy goes from being on a tiny rock to a comfortably larger one.
If you dare to come near me again...
Wendy!
Seems Wendy's inherited another thing from Alice. Both still have an occasional lip sync issue even in a fantasy wonderland.
Also, that shell wasn't there when they first attacked her, despite the artist getting it in before she picked it up. You'd think they were doing this just for me to report.
Also, her hair goes from wet here to dry upon Hook's arrival. The hints of romance are subdued, but they're still there. It's quite obvious what the mermaid's interest in Peter is, given they act like teenagers. They even threaten Wendy with their maturity. It's easy to ignore, but it still doesn't sit well in this version. Hook sails from left to right past the cove, but on the map, it's north in such a fashion that Hook would have to be sailing the other way to get to Skull Rock from Mermaid Lagoon. Not to mention its convention for the antagonist to move from right to left, so... yeah, I've no idea either.
Remember, there is no path through water to the happy hunting ground.
Whoa, I'm surprised Disney left in such a specifically spiritual statement.
Mr. Smee, release the princess and take her back to her people. But Captain, those are me orders, Mr. Smee.
Peter's impersonation just kills it.
How come Hook didn't hear him the first time? Peter's impersonation echoed loudly enough.
Oh, and one more thing. When you return to the ship, tell the whole crew to help themselves to me best rum.
Brilliant. Just brilliant. Whatever problems Peter's character has, he works for the adventure and swashbuckling. Despite Hook losing his sword, it's returned to his scabbard here. The boot the Hook didn't lose switches place. It corrected itself afterwards, but still. Also, when the crocodile swallows Hook here, he's back fully clothed. Obviously near impossible to notice at normal speed, but still weird.
Smee!
This is the funniest slapstick ever in a Disney feature. Kills me every time. Another point against Peter. He completely forgot about Tiger Lily and nearly let her drown. Not someone I want to depend on. I like this. It's like seeing Elmer Fudd drown his sorrows after another failed attempt to get Bugs Bunny. You know what I mean. I think that's enough nails, Smee. Also, some of those nails vanish.
Smee has 2 nails in his mouth, but when he picks one out, the remaining one is gone. I'm putting it down to illogical Neverland magic.
I just can't get enough of the antics derived from Smee's goofiness juxtaposed against Hook's operatic silliness. Glorious stuff. Though we switched Hooks, the base was still silver, so the goof here is odd.
He's delivering an oration in sign language.
What's he saying?
Gee, Isn't it convenient a prepubescent child who isn't mute or deaf knows sign language well enough to translate? Let me reiterate, the sequence is not intentionally racist, it was just a cultural inclination of the time period. I'm glad Disney hasn't altered this, but it's still problematic. Up to you to decide how problematic. The warp thing? I still love this sequence, because it's so catchy and musically inclined. Doesn't make me bigoted just because I find it so much fun. Wendy is clearly feeling more jealousy at not having Peter's attention. I like the film a bit more at an age when those things flew over my head. The icing is the chief himself. He doesn't even somewhat resemble humans. He's such a marvelous exaggeration. Remove the race issue, and he'd be a fantastic comic creation. Here we have the best sequence, with the three best characters. Hook spells a wonderful web of deceit, and Tinkerbell's as expressive as ever, with Goofy and drunk Smee on the side. Hook had a ring on his hook earlier. He clearly put it on as part of this act of deception, so search me why it's missing. Let it be said again, Tinkerbell's expressive animation. Who needs words, folks?
Taking the best years of her life and then casting her aside like an old glove. Ain't it a bloomin' shame?
I think that may be my favourite moment in the film. After the animators place Hook's hook on his left arm to allow for better actions, it switches to his right arm here.
Take this down, Smee.
Take this down, Smee.
Ha! Brilliant. That passes too quickly for us to see her cup her finger like a hook. Pity. This is the point where Wendy realises Peter's desire to stay a child forever isn't the right choice, but the film doesn't communicate her realisation well. Comes across as a heel turn instead.
I think I had a mother once.
What was she like?
I forget.
And that's the most we get about the Lost Boys. The boys didn't have war paint on earlier, except for the twins. In fact, ever since the scene at the camp, the twins switched between paint and no paint several times. Michael's face goes weirdly off model here. I recoiled, folks. I love how Hook is unfazed, but all the others are moved to tears.
There isn't a boy who won't enjoy a working for Captain Hook.
Really? You were all kicking up a bit of a fuss earlier.
Crook, trickety, crockety, crickety, crook, the croc is after Captain.
Payback is oh so sweet.
That pirate goes from flagging the path to Hook to cutting them all free. I don't think he has an identical twin or nothing.
Peter Pan will save us.
See, they romanticise Peter at the cost of jarring with his treatment elsewhere, when he just realised how undependable he was. When I discovered the bomb was originally poison in the play, it made so much more sense. The bomb felt out of place even in my youth. The poison may have been a bit dark, but still. Where are the other two Lost Boys? Only 4 are watching in horror. Cartoon exaggeration will always have a place, folks.
Okay, that's not the order they were tied back up in. See for yourselves.
Apart from their weapons not being there earlier, the pirates took them and left them here? Wouldn't happen. This kind of thing happens whenever heroes break free. Their tools are always magically nearby. Even though Hook lost most of his hat here, that doesn't explain the base going missing when we cut back later. I love how Smee has quietly resigned himself to defeat and is already packing up. So in character for him. Apparently Neverland has an embargo against cut mustaches remaining that way for more than a few seconds.
You mean you won't fly?
No, Peter, it's a trick!
It's a trap! I'm a godfish!
Cowardly snivelling Hook, folks. Love him. In case you didn't realise the crocodile was a comic masterpiece. This is the best change from the play. Walt knew the cartoon Hook was so likeable we wouldn't want to see him die. You'd never want Wile E. Coyote to actually bite the dust. Same principle here. So yeah, I laughed pretty hard here. There were 9 pirates in the boat besides Smee. Guess the marooned 5 of them, because there's only 4 here. I didn't give the score much credit, but it's up there. Most classic Disney films have effective scores, but usually not as memorable as the songs. This is the rare case where the score is of similar quality, and not just when quoting melodies from the songs. The boys' beds and the boys themselves are missing during this shot. Easy to miss, but it caught my eye enough to check. The denouement does an almost arch typo. Forget what you learned, go back to how you were. It doesn't even bother me that much. It's just a good example of unnecessary simplification. I love watching this in my youth, but I'm not blind to its flaws. Some are small, others less so. But all the thematic stuff is still there, especially how Peter represents both the innocent and less so aspects of childhood. You just have to dig a bit more than you should to find them, but they're there. It's still a film I love. 3 masterfully animated characters, lovely backgrounds despite being less detailed than usual, and all the fantasy elements you'd want. For the child in us, what more could we ask for?
-28.
Just because it's not a masterpiece doesn't mean it's not a classic. That sums up Disney's Peter Pan.